What's up, guys? It's Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down 3 creative routes that wide receivers can learn how to run in some tough situations. So we're going to be talking about how you guys can run a 10-yard out when a DB is sitting outside leverage right at 8 to 10 yards. Then we're going to talk about how you guys can run a 10-yard post when the DB is sitting inside leverage at about 8 to 10 yards. And then we're going to talk about like a 3-step slant when that DB is lined up inside leverage but in off coverage. So I hope this video helps you guys out. Hope it teaches you a few things about these common situations that wide receivers struggle with. But also, fellas, if you guys would like to train with myself and my staff of coaches this offseason, we are coming out to 3 more locations across the country for 2-day-long QB and wide receiver training camps. So next up, we are coming out to Nashville, Tennessee, then Salt Lake City, Utah, and then Los Angeles, California. So if you guys want some more information on that, check out that very first link in the description below. Let's get started with this video. So first clip here, we're going to be looking at a DB outside leverage, about 10 yards off, and this wide receiver is running a 10-yard speed out. So how would we go about this? Let's play this thing full speed. This is textbook by this wide receiver. And this is against Darrelle Revis. This guy is no slouch, probably one of the greatest DBs of all time. And so if this can work against him, think about what this would do against maybe a high school DB or a youth guy. So when this DB's outside leverage, right, we got to understand a couple different things. Why is he outside leverage? Because he wants to force me to the inside. He wants to funnel me to the inside. And usually what does that mean? That means that he probably has help to the inside. So he'd be completely, I don't want to say fine with us, but it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if we just took off and ran a post, because he could get hands on me and force me all the way to his help. So the way that a lot of people think about situations like this is, oh, well, if he's outside leverage, I just want to attack him, get him to backpedal and step on his toes. I get him to backpedal right here, then I could just slip under and run the out route. But that's not going to happen, because a disciplined DB, if you were to attack his leverage, again, his sole purpose in outside shade is to force you inside and to not give up the outside. So if you were to go and attack him, he would just widen. He would just keep his leverage. So you need to have a different plan of action. Now, when it comes down to every single route that we run, there are a couple things that we want to sell. We would want to sell vertical. No matter what, if you're running a route past 5 yards, even 5-yard routes, like a slant, like a hitch, you got to sell fade. So instead of getting this DB to widen or to backpedal, let's try to get him to flip his hips and run, so maybe I could slip back underneath him. So that's what this wide receiver does. He takes off and he goes hard right at this inside shoulder of this DB. We want to make him think fade. We want to make him think deep post, because maybe this is like cover 3, maybe it is off man, but either way, he doesn't want to give up the fade. Off man, cover 3, cover 4, he does not want to give up that fade. So that's how we have to make it look like. So to get this DB to move, a lot of people, I talk about this and they say, oh, well, what if he doesn't flip his hips? What if he just sits there? You can't be thinking about that. You need to be thinking about, how can I make sure that he flips his hips? And that comes from 3 things. You got to run with good pad level. You can't raise up before the break, because that lets that DB know that you're making a break. You got to run in full stride, which is what he does, and you have to run hard. All of those things look like it is going to be a fade. If you can make your entire stem look like a fade, I guarantee you there is a certain point when this DB has to commit. And when he commits and he flips his hips, guess what? I'm in a position to where I can slip back underneath if I have that smooth cut, that speed cut. Now, a lot of people will say, like, why would I do this? Why wouldn't I just take the outside release? A lot of wide receiver coaches will teach, hey, you want to always take an outside release on an outside breaking route. That's not necessarily the case, fellas. You could take an inside or an outside release on any route if you run it correctly. But think about it from a quarterback perspective. When he's throwing a 10-yard out, what is he trying to do? He's trying to lead you, right? A quarterback will never be looking like this is on the right side of the field, right? He will never be looking left and come back to an out route late and be like, oh, there he is, and throw this thing across the field. It's a timing throw. So you got to give him space to the sideline to lead you open. But because this DB's outside leverage, you don't have that space if you try to take the outside release. Even if you do get around him, this DB is going to widen you, and you'll have, let's say, the sidelines here. You'll have maybe like 3 yards, and that's almost an impossible throw when you get a DB on your hip. So take that inside release. I'd rather take my chances with the inside release, being able to slip under and give the QB space to throw me open. And that's exactly what he does. Does a great job selling fade, getting that DB to flip, and look at all the space he has to operate. He has space to run out of that break. 3 phases of the route. You got to sell fade. fade, you got to create energy with your break, and you have to accelerate. But because of my route running IQ, I need to learn how to give myself space to accelerate and win the race to the ball to beat that DB there. And Revis is not in a bad spot, and that goes to show, though, fellas. Again, a good, talented DB will be able to recover. The details matter when you are playing a DB who's not a scrub. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Great job by this wide receiver selling fade with pad level, stride, and speed, getting that DB to flip his hips. So now, second situation that I want to talk about that we get a lot of questions on, that a lot of wide receivers panic on. How do I run like a 10-yard dig or a 10-yard post, 12-yard post, a post off of my third outside, my fourth outside, when I have an inside shade off-man DB sitting at about 10? So that's where we want to break, right? So perfect example, perfect time to talk about the same thing with the out route. It's not about attacking the leverage of the DB. So this is just the flip-flop version, right? So this DB's lineup, I'm going to play this full speed, plays full speed first. So he attacks outside shoulder, gets the DB to flip, and then he's able to slip underneath. So it is the same concept as when you guys would run a regular, like an out route versus outside shade. When you have a route to the leverage, so I'm talking inside route to the inside leverage coverage, you want to attack a shoulder. So that would be if you have an out route versus the outside leverage, you'd want to attack the inside shoulder. If you have the dig route versus inside leverage, you want to attack the outside. It just flip-flops, okay? So same idea. This DB's lined up inside shade to protect what? Wants to protect the inside. He wants to prevent us from running exactly what we have to run, a dig, a post, but we got to have a plan for it. Now, one thing that you always have on your side when it's inside leverage is that you know he doesn't have safety help. So he's on an island. It's pretty much man coverage, true and true. So he does not want to get beat on that fade. So that can help you sell the route. So that's what this wide receiver does. He comes off the line. You see how he's got great pad level. He's running in full stride. He's running full speed. Everything about this looks like a fade until it's not. And he puts the brakes on. What does he do? He's able to slip back underneath. You see the DB's not in a bad spot. Sherman's not in a bad angle. And again, Sherman isn't a slouch DB, but this can get you separation, fellas. There comes a certain point when a DB has to commit his hips. He has to eventually commit to the fade. But how much of a salesman are you going to be? Are you going to sell the route with pad level? Are you actually going to run hard? Are you going to run full speed, full stride? Because that is what will get him to flip. A lot of wide receivers try to do this. They'll have this inside shade look. They'll go at the outside shoulder, but right at this break point right here, they start to chop their feet and slow down because they're preparing for the cut to go underneath. Fellas, how we make that tight change of direction is by being sudden with my feet, putting that foot in the ground hard, getting that whole cleat in the grass, or having a violent drop of my hips. It's one of the two, but that's why it's so important to work on your breaks. That's why it's so important to be a salesman on your routes. You can know what to do all day long, but if you don't know how to sell it and how to efficiently get out of the route, there is no point. And that is the name of the game when it comes to route running. Now, some of you might ask me, well, Coach, you talk a lot about attacking leverage. When do we actually attack leverage? So let's talk about that. If you have that same look, like let's say that same route as the first clip. Let's say you were running a 10-yard out and you had this coverage. That is when you'd attack him, right? Because again, his sole responsibility is to protect the inside. So if you were to attack his leverage, what do you think he'd do? He'd keep his leverage. He would weave to the inside. That's why you don't want to attack his leverage when you have an inside breaking route. Because you'll attack his leverage, he'll weave to the inside, then you'll end up running right into him. But if you had an outside route, you wouldn't just want to go run the out route because then he would be able to get hands and he'd be right on your hip. You've got to threaten him. So you would attack his leverage, get him to widen inside, and then you break it off and you have extra space to accelerate. Same idea. If we had this dig route and we had the coverage like last time where this DB was on maybe this red line, you would go at him, get him to widen, get him to play that fade, and then you would break underneath. So you got to understand how to structure that stem, fellas, if you want to be a creative route runner and an efficient route runner. That's the main thing. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Great job attacking outside shoulder, breaking underneath, and then finishing on this catch. So now, this is a tough situation for a lot of wide receivers. You got to run like a 3-step slant, and you have a DB who's lined up inside shade about 2 yards off. And a 3-step slant will take you to about 2 yards, maybe 3 yards. So, well, you know what? I take that back. Probably about 5 yards. He's probably sitting about maybe 4 yards off inside shade. So the one thing that you can't see based on this clip, well, you could kind of see it because of the goalpost, but this is on the goal line, right? So this is a goal line situation. So let's play this thing full speed. So what Kyle Phillips does here is he attacks the DB's leverage, gives a 1-2, and then is able to make that catch on a slant. So let's talk about that, right? So you want to treat this very similar to how we treated the post. So on the post route, What did we not want to do? Let's pretend this DB's 8 yards off and we had to run a post and he's inside shade. You'd want to attack his outside shoulder, get him to flip his hips and then slip underneath, right? Perfect. You wouldn't want to square him up and attack his leverage because he would just weave to the inside. But now that kind of changes when you're on the goal line. Now, the reason why you can know this as a receiver is because a DB on the goal line is taught no matter what to not do what? Backpedal. So if you attack a DB, you know he's not going to backpedal and you know he's not going to weave because you could easily, if you attack him and he backpedals, what's stopping you from just hooking up right there? Quarterback gives you a ball and you just fall down. It's a touchdown, right? It's easy money. So DBs are taught to stand their ground when they're on the goal line. So now this is when maybe attacking his leverage on an inside breaking route could work. I'm not saying you couldn't attack his outside shoulder because that could still work, but this is why he does it. So what Phillips does is he squares him up, he attacks him here, knows he's not going to back up, so he keeps some space between him. He keeps maybe about a yard, and then he throws this 1-2, right? Stepping outside the DB's frame. His hips and his shoulders, everything about this looks like he's breaking to the outside. That will get the DB to jump, and that can create some space for you back inside. That is textbook what you want to do in this case. When it's goal line and you know he's not going to back up, you could just attack him, give him a 1-2, and then go. You don't necessarily have to attack that outside shoulder, especially if it's like a quicker timed up play. But he definitely could. I mean, there would be no problem if he maybe like squared him up and then bursted outside and attacked his outside shoulder to make him think goal line fade, and we got him to flip his hips. That'd be totally fine too. I'm not saying either one is correct. This is just the reason why we were able to square him up this time. In the open field, if he would have squared him up like this, that DB would have weaved to the inside and kept his leverage. And then if he would have had to run that slant, he would have been running right into him. But because we're on the goal line, we can get away with this. So fellas, you just got to know the difference between the two in this situation. Open field, I would probably suggest to you guys to just go right at his outside shoulder, get him to flip, and then be able to slip underneath. They call that a diamond release slant. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Great job attacking, throwing that 1-2, and then making that catch on the slant from Phillips. All right, fellas, I really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you guys have any questions at all, don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section below. We always appreciate the feedback. It's always great to hear from you guys as usual. And if you guys would like to come out and get some work in with us this offseason, we are traveling out to 3 more states for 2-day-long QB and wide receiver training camps. Next up, we're coming out to Nashville. Then we'll be going to Salt Lake, and then we're going to Los Angeles, California. So, fellas, if you'd like some more information, very first link below. I'll see you guys next time.